Hi, everybody. My name is Petra Lungren. I am an innovation broker at the Global Change Institute at the University of Queensland, and I am here to give you the perspective of the funder when it comes to including communities in research design. More specifically, how can funders influence and support community-centered research for impact? I'm going to look at this very much from my former role as the Director of Strategic Science Programs at the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, which was a not-for-profit organization that focused solely on improving the resilience of the Great Barrier Reef. It had a very clear vision, a very clear mandate, so to some extent, a lot of my work there was focused around how do we best do this, how do we form the best possible teams to have an impact, to measure sort of the impact of the research on the health of the Great Barrier Reef. One thing that I have recently heard people say and mention that I think is really, really important is that you need to distinguish between being somebody who invests in change versus being somebody who funds research discovery. They're two very different things. In fact, the funder's perspective is hugely varied. It is very different to fund research discovery like the Australian Research Council's discovery grants, for example. You're investing in the excellence of a research idea or a research concept. If you are an industry with a specific problem, you can invest in research specifically to tackle your very, very narrow problem. And the impact will be, well, it's either solved or it isn't. The inclusion of research in a larger body of work towards a broader vision of change, however, is more complex. Investing in change is complex. It really requires the assembly of a network, and that network needs to be designed specifically around the challenge to achieve an outcome. Change, as we all know, is driven by communities and civil society, hence their voice and representation needs to be put firmly into the pathway to impact planning of any research program that aspires to have impact beyond the scientific discovery. Hence, investing in change requires a more holistic funding approach. Never underestimate the need for communication tools, engagement tools, funding of community and stakeholder activities, such as their time, their design and dissemination inputs, and thought leadership. The benefit of being the source of funding or investment is that you can write the rules of engagement, and you have a lot of influence over how agreements and contracts are shaped. However, remember that even the best laid plans do not guarantee a successful outcome. So if the impact is the driver, be prepared to stay involved. Don't just hand the money over and walk away. What are the tools that you have at your disposal as a research funder? Well, first of all, you can be as strategic or not as you want about your funding and why you're funding it. If you want to invest in change, put the effort into design for change. You make the rules, make the design process reflect your intent, and make it part of the proposal process. As somebody who's worked in both academia, government, and the non-for-profit sector, I'm actually surprised at how unfamiliar many researchers are with the concepts of theory of change, program logic, developing proper monitoring and evaluation processes from the very start. I am also surprised at how many positive responses I get from researchers when you put them through these processes. I have heard so many, really, this is where my research fits into the broader picture, the broader vision, this is what it means, and this is what it really does. If you go through a proper logic framework with people, you can also find that researchers all of a sudden realize that their proposed solution may not always be the best solution, which leads me to this next point. Don't ever invest in just a solution. Make sure that you're thinking about the challenge and what it is that you're trying to solve and assemble the best team around that challenge. Also, involve communities, assume beneficiaries, other stakeholders, and encourage them to question the proposed research solutions. It's not about you selling a solution to engage other people. It's about having them being part of that process and deciding what is important and how are we going to do this. There's nothing like a well-placed, so what? How exactly is this going to change things? How is that going to work in this context? How does it affect me? To make researchers step back and go, maybe I should think about this a bit differently. Also be inclusive in that stakeholder mapping. It's very easy to just collect your friends around there and be encouraged in what you're doing. Get the critical voices in there too. Don't shy away from them. You're never going to reach consensus. It's okay to have people question what you're going to do. But make sure that you know who the key influences are, who the ones are that are likely to drive change, and have them involved from the start. Again, and this is critical, community and external stakeholders are not a nice to have. They need to be in there from the start, and they need to be funded too. So invest in that. Invest in stakeholders, invest in communities, fund the research and fund the external community as well. That's how you will ultimately have the biggest impact. Thank you.